for your second ever time, tell us about your first ever introduction to New Zealand, which was a few years ago.
Well, the first time I came to New Zealand, I think it may have been 1993 or, probably about 1993, I think I came in here, and it was I was in the army. We did what was called service-protected evacuation training. So imagining that we're going to a foreign country and evacuating Australian nationals.
Okay. Yeah.
So we were rehearsing that. So I was only in New Zealand for 24 hours, but I wasn't actually sure where in New Zealand I was.
Okay.
So they just kind of give us a local map of the area. I remember thinking it's very green and there's this one massive mountain with white stuff on top, which we don't see a lot of in Australia. Now, I think I've been told that retrospectively we were in a place called Waiaru.
Yeah, Waiuru, which is central North Island. That's where the sort of military camp is. So I'm suspecting that's where you
But
are.
I don't know whether I was in the North Island or the South Island. I just did not know where I knew I was in New Zealand. That was all I knew.
And you're simulating like an evacuation, basically. So what, as if New Zealand had broken out into some sort of civil war and you had to escape all the Australians? Very likely scenario. It was,
imagine, if you can, in a fantasy world where Australia wins the Bledisloe Cup.
Yeah, like that's fantasy world. But
and we did it by cheating or something. So there's mass riots in the streets. All Australian businesses are being ransacked and attacked. All the Australians are trying to cram into the embassy or the consulate, and it's not safe because everyone's really unhappy that we won the Bledisloe Cup by cheating. So they drive people to the airport, and we kind of interview people, and we make sure we're evacuating Australian citizens.
Wow. Well, see, that's a whole different life, though.
Exactly.
I mean, to what you're doing now. So kind of explain the sphere that you're in. Christian Apologetics. What is that for anyone that's kind of has a bit of a question mark there?
Apologetics is about offering a reasoned defense of the Christian faith. So if theology is about what we believe as Christians, articulating biblical doctrine, then apologetics is saying, well, why do we believe? What is compelling about the Christian faith? Now, whether that's the truth and the historicity of the Bible, whether it's the experiential nature of the Christian faith, the utility or the benefits of being Christian, creates a better world, the advantages of Christian ethics. It's all those sorts of things we do in apologetics.
You gave us a brief rundown of the army experience that you had. This is like a 180 to where you've come from. Was this where the journey you wanted to get into this sort of career path whilst being in the army? Where did this all come from?
Well, I didn't grow up in a Christian home, so I came to faith while I was serving in the army. I simply got invited along to church, and I thought, got to find something else to do than just, going to nightclubs and chasing girls.
Evacuating Australian citizens out of New Zealand. It gets tiring pretty quick.
It does. So I thought, got to find something else to do. And I thought I'd never been along to a church. And I just assumed all churches were filled with moralizing geriatrics. But this church I went to was not a church of moralizing geriatrics. It was just some great, wonderful people who loved the Lord and shared the love of God with me, shared the gospel with me. And I heard the good news about Christ and became a Christian in 1994. And I was very well discipled by a young pastor at the time. And from there, I thought about what should I do with my life? And I thought initially about becoming an army chaplain. Mm-hmm. So combining my military career with, my love for Jesus and my desire to serve. I went to a theological college. It was called the Queensland Baptist College of Ministries, and it's now part of Moreland College. Did a degree there in a Bachelor of Theology, which was pretty good, but it became pretty apparent I was better equipped on the academic side than I was on the pastoral side. Because of my army background, all problems are basically solved by the phrase, well, just man up, princess.
Sure.
Do what you're told,
Or do as you're told. Basically, I was better. I had some underlying academic abilities I did not know about. And
you strike me as an academic. Just to give you, I know this is just an audio medium, but Salah's wearing a hoodie. I've got a T-shirt. You've got on like a tweed jacket,
blazer
sort of thing, and a shirt, and you're looking very slick.
Yeah, I know. People do love my green jacket, but I've been described a number of ways. Sort of Aussie ginger, Timu Austin Powers.
Timu Austin Powers.
Yeah.
That's a compliment. You got to
Very
take
good,
that.
very good.
What gets you going about this kind of stuff, right? Where you're speaking into the sort of historical accuracies of Jesus existing, the proof, the evidence, that kind of thing. Like when people say, you know, Jesus, cool idea, but probably just an amalgamation of a lot of thoughts of the time, or probably didn't really exist as a person, or you really push back on that and have the evidence to back up your position on it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, you get some crazy stuff. I remember I was once at a party and I told a guy that I'm a New Testament scholar, and he goes, "Oh, I thought the Dead Sea Scrolls disproved all that stuff." And I said, "Well, actually, no. In fact, the Dead Sea Scrolls kind of show how Jesus, the early church, fits into the ancient world, but it's a long story." So yeah, what I do is explore who Jesus is. You know, we talk about the evidence. Jesus was definitely a real person. I mean, the average historian believes that Jesus lived and died. I mean, the real question is, did Jesus live, die, and live again? I mean, that's
Was he the Son of God or
Yeah.
just a guy?
So the idea that there was a real historical Jesus isn't really disputed in the academy. I mean, how much we could know about Jesus, you know, what was he like? I mean, people haggle on all the various details of the events and about what Jesus said and did. But yeah, so yeah, that's what I kind of do.
Is that the biggest challenge when people find out who you are, when asking you questions about your faith and doctrine and theology? Skeptics, obviously, they come to you and they say, well, what about this, this, and this? What's the biggest question that they ask you?
Oh, it's a number of things that it changes. Sometimes people have questions about the Old Testament and warfare. You know, like, you know, kill all the Jebusites, kill all the Canaanites. That can be a big question. Other times I'll have questions about Christian sexual ethics. You know, are Christians too restrictive in what they believe about, you know, marriage and sexuality? Other times people will try to argue that Christianity has been a bad influence on society and the world. And yeah, I've got all sorts of, you know, answers and things I talk about when those questions come up.
You've done a lot of stuff, right? Do you ever feel like you're in this apologetic space of kind of defending the Christian faith or putting forward your view on it and the evidence behind it? In that position, do you feel like you have to know everything, or like you have to have all the answers when someone comes to you with a different angle or something that they've got that they're like, well, what about this? Is there like a pressure there, or do you feel that at all?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And one thing I've learned, you're better off being honest and saying, I don't know, I've never heard that question before, rather than making it up and coming up with an answer that's inauthentic or not very well informed. And, you know, so like I'm a professional Bible nerd. So, you know, I literally
Those are your words, but yes.
I literally do this for a living.
Yeah.
So there's not too many questions I haven't heard before. And this is why I love my first year students, because they will ask a question and they assume they're the first student to ask me.
But what about this?
Yeah.
And I go, I would never have thought of that in a million years, except I have. So I think having I've got some sort of, you know, questions I get regularly and answers I've got prepared. But if it's something I don't know, I say, you know, that's interesting. I'll have to think about that one and get back to you.
You say you just, you know, the young people that you're around, students you're around, with social media, a whole lot of things happening around them. There's doubts about Christianity. What advice do you give the young?
I think one of the best things you can do as a Christian is to live a transparently Christian life in a way that looks desirable to other people. One of the best apologetics is simply a well-lived Christian life. People who genuinely act as Christians and who make a difference in the people immediately around them and in the world at large. I think that's probably one of the best apologetics these days. And the other thing is just be open to having conversations with people, because if you live differently, people will become curious, about certain things, and that gives you a good chance to explain the reason or the basis or why you continue in the faith.
You strike me as a very sort of measured and controlled person. Like, and I feel like sometimes, and maybe it's just the internet, the algorithms, all that kind of stuff, but people are not too good these days at having conversations with people who hold differing opinions to them. What's your sort of take on that? Are we getting better or worse at having these types of conversations around, do you believe this? I don't. How do we coexist together? What do you think about that?
Oh, I think social media has made us all angry and smug, and we're too easy to go with something negative and a put down, a kind of emotive reaction. And it's also increased by the fact that we can live in these echo chambers. So I'll have all my Facebook friends or my Instagram friends who are all in the same sort of little worldview and cycle, and then when I come across someone who's outside the tribe, the propensity is to be negative and demeaning. And I think this applies to sort of all people of all spectrums. But that's just not a good way to be a human being. It's not a good way to communicate with other people. It's not good for your mental health if you're just, scrolling the internet looking at things to be angry about. I mean, that's not going to be good on the long term. What I think we need to be is gracious, thoughtful, and, like they say, dance like nobody's watching. But write tweets and Facebook posts like they're going to be read out in court on Monday. That's my advice.
That's very good advice. You call yourself a Bible nerd, but you're also very personable as well. And you've got a lot of knowledge, Dr. Michael. Has there been a time when you just said to somebody, I don't know? I mean, like maybe somebody's posed a question to you. Well, if God's around, why is there so much chaos?
Yeah. Look, there are times where people will give me not just simply a general question, but something very specific, and I'll have to say, oh, man, I just don't know, or I've thought about this, and I still don't know the answer. I mean, it could be things like, how do we wrestle with God's sovereignty and human responsibility? When is war justified? There are some questions. I've got some few basic ideas about it, but I can't say I've got absolute certainty on everything on this particular area. I'm still trying to figure out myself.
Yeah.
And I think people appreciate that, because otherwise you're just trying to, if you just try to bluff your way through everything, it'll work about 80% of the time. But every now and again, the bluffs, people know you're bluffing. Yeah.
What do you do on the daily to keep yourself grounded or to get that spiritual nourishment that you need? Is there anything that you do?
Well, I'm very fortunate to be at Ridley College in Melbourne, Australia. So we have chapel 3 times a week. I get to pray with faculty, students regularly. I'm always reading the Bible, in class with students teaching the Bible, and also being involved in my local church. And I like to end the day with a bit of, reading of the Greek New Testament. That's kind of what I do before I go to bed. So that's for me how I kind of keep my life spiritually nourished and fresh.
Oh, you and I are the same then.
Yeah, I'm the big fan of the Greek New Testament also. I'm glad we've only just realised we all speak ancient Greek together, but we don't have time to get into it anymore. It's been so good having you in,
It has been.
Michael. It's been great to meet you, and I hope the tour is a great success. So I'll just give you some details. The Encounter Tour, Carl Faze and Dr. Michael Bird, it's going around the country over the next sort of week or so. So Dunedin, there's Auckland, Hamilton, Christchurch, Tauranga. If you go to thinkingmatters.org.nz, you can find all the details there. But tonight, North Cross Church in Auckland on the North Shore, you can head along and hear these guys. It's been a pleasure having you in, and welcome back to New Zealand. You don't have to be out in this cold snow this time.
Okay, so no Waiaru.
No.
Okay.
Sorry. You can look at concrete jungle here in Auckland City. That'll make you feel okay. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. You've been wonderful. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, guys, and thanks for all your listeners for tuning in as well.